send out the solicitations after the holidays at the beginning of the year. We'll give, again, 2 months to get those back, and then the board will have a chance to review those with the division in March. So we'll just push everything back a month, and we'll plan on giving out the award in May this year, as long as that fits with your schedule. If you're comfortable with that, that's what we'll do. We still have time this month. If you would prefer to send it out this month, we certainly can. Okay.
Board members, any comments or questions on that item? I think that would be great.
Okay, perfect. And as you know, Holly Brown, our PIO, coordinates that, so she'll be sending out those solicitations and working us through the process as we get to the beginning of the year. Something else that Holly's been very involved in is a division video that we developed. It was something that we wanted to do because we felt like there was great misunderstanding about what the division does and how we do it. And we wanted to get something out in the public, and especially for the legislature as we present to them, that would give them a bit more information about what the division's role is in state government. So we've developed this video. It's not too long, but Holly took the time this summer and this fall to work with an organization that we went out for a request for proposal, and we got a company to submit a bid to us, and we've used them during the summer months and in the fall to develop this video. So if you folks are ready, we'd like to go ahead and start that video for you and kind of a coming out party for the board.
Please proceed.
Okay.
The Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining was originally established in 1955 with a mission to foster the exploration and development of Utah's natural resources. The great state of Utah has an abundant supply of these resources, including oil, gas, and minerals. Utah's oil, gas, and mining industry is one of the largest contributors to Utah's economy and helps fund critical needs such as education and roads. Our unique resources allow us to be more self-sustaining as a state while improving residents' overall quality of life. The Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining ensures responsible, safe resource development as well as reclamation of Utah's lands.
The mission of the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining is principally to regulate and have state oversight of the extractive industries in Utah. And we do that with 3 primary objectives. One is to foster the responsible development of those resources, to protect the public from any hazards associated with those resources, and to restore the environment as much as possible.
With many important responsibilities, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining is organized into 4 key programs. The coal program is responsible for providing permits to coal companies, completing site inspections to confirm compliance, and overseeing the reclamation and bond release process.
We issue permits. We require the coal mines to conduct their operations in accordance with the rules, which requires them to do certain practices during mining and then reclaim the mine sites once they're done. To ensure that, we require them to post a reclamation bond with our agency that guarantees that they will complete the reclamation work, or otherwise they'll lose their bond.
Coal extraction is important to Utah. In 2015, 6 Utah coal operators produced 14.5 million short tons of coal, valued at $508 million. Communities in Carbon, Emery, Sevier, and Kane counties rely on the coal industry to provide jobs and stimulate their local economies. Utah contains over 500 different minerals and ore deposits that hold close to 30 different metals, including copper, gold, and silver. The Minerals Program oversees all non-coal mining operations in the state, from Kennecott copper to small operations mining for trilobite fossils. Staff works to ensure mining operation procedures are followed. This includes verifying operators work within permit boundaries, making sure mining operations pose no threat to public safety or the environment, and that adequate bonds are in place to ensure reclamation.
The primary focus of our program is to ensure that mined land is reclaimed which means that it's taken back to a useful post-mining land use. And that can be anything from wildlife habitat to commercial development to housing or even farmland.
In 2015, copper was the largest contributor to the value of non-fuel minerals in Utah, having an estimated value of $551 million and mostly produced from Kennecott Utah Copper Corporation's Bingham Canyon mine.
There's nothing in our life that doesn't have something to do with mineral extraction of some sort. Absolutely nothing. Whether it's food or clothing or buildings, everything has something to do with mining minerals.
Utah's mining legacy dates back as early as the 1800s, in which copper, silver, and uranium were mined across the state. In the past, when mines stopped producing, they were simply abandoned, leaving behind equipment, open shafts, tunnels, and piles of waste rock. In 1975, the Utah Mined Land Reclamation Act was passed, making it illegal for mines to be abandoned.
We've closed approximately 6,000 abandoned mine openings in the state of Utah since the 34-year history of the program. We've also reclaimed hundreds of acres of coal mine legacy problems.
With approximately 20,000 abandoned mines statewide, the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program works to protect the public from dangers of old mines by sealing off access to openings and cleaning up waste. Since the program began in 1983, over 6,000 mine openings have been closed. The state of Utah is rich in oil and gas, ranking 12th in the country for crude oil production and 11th in natural gas gross production. Currently, there are over 16,000 oil and gas wells statewide that division staff are responsible for inspecting.
Well, we have a lot of rules and regulations we need to drill oil and gas wells in Utah, so it's our job to make sure everyone complies with those rules and regulations.
Part of the division's mission is to foster responsible use, and so we inspect to see that the operators are following those guidelines.
Whether the industry is booming or drilling is slow, these wells must continually be inspected in order to ensure compliance and adherence to safe engineering practices.
One of the key resources is we alleviate the risk associated with natural resource development. Mining obviously doesn't happen without impact. Drilling doesn't happen without impact. But if we can minimize those impacts and restore the land as much as possible, then we know that these impacts are going to be transient.
The Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining needs the support of elected officials to continue our efforts to keep Utahns safe, protect our natural resources, and regulate industries that contribute extensively to Utah's economy. Your ongoing support and understanding of how division programs function is a necessity in strengthening the quality of life for Utah's citizens. For more information on the programs, processes, and strategies for responsible resource development, visit ogm.utah.gov.
That's it. Do you have any comments?
Board members, any comments?
I think it was really well done, professionally done, and it's, I commend those that participated in that. I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well done.
Well, if you're wanting to use this yourselves, we'll give you copies. I know it's out on our division website, so feel free to use this in whatever conversations you might have or presentations you're giving to the public. The next item on our agenda is to talk about the compulsory pooling rule change that you've obviously had on your agenda for quite a while now. And James Owen has been overseeing that effort, so I'd just like him to do a brief update for you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this is just a brief update to inform you that we have sent out a letter to our informal rules review group soliciting comments on that rulemaking. That group includes key contacts from industry, environmental groups, and also some state and federal agencies that we consider to be key stakeholders that would have valuable input at the outset. The letter, I attached to the letter the board's order that initiated that informal rulemaking, so anyone submitting comments has all of the background information that they need to have to put their comments together. And we left that comment period open through January 9th of 2018. So I haven't gotten any comments yet, but I anticipate that some will start to flow through. So that's where it's at, and after those comments come in, we'll do an analysis at that point as well. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy
Questions, board members?
Thanks, James. Item 4 on our agenda is one that has been worked on over the last couple of years and has involved the division in some very lengthy discussions with the Interstate Mining Compact, the EPA, groups of states, the Office of, what is it, OIRA, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for. But Dana Dean has been very involved with that effort as our Associate Director of Mining. So she's put together a presentation that I'd like her to come and give to you right now. The decision was made by EPA on December 1st, by the way.
Yes, good morning, Board, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your time. Yes, the decision came out last Friday after I had gone home for the day, so or after 6 p.m., so they waited till the last possible minute. But the last time I briefed you on this subject was 2011, and at the time we were still trying to work with the EPA on this rulemaking, and we were anticipating a rule much sooner than it was published. But I'll go through some of the background here. Before I start, though, I'd like to thank Paul Baker for doing a lot of the reading and digesting of this information and helping me to prepare for meetings and helping to prepare comments for the EPA and for OIRA and for other groups, and Steve Alder for following this on the legal end and working with other states' attorney generals to combine our efforts to get our point across. And I don't know if Steve had help from Meg and Emma and maybe Melissa back when she was here. It's been so long, but I do appreciate, and I want you to know that there was a lot of work behind this that helped me to be able to articulate the things that I was able to do in meetings for the state of Utah. On December 11th, 1980, Congress enacted CERCLA. At the time, they were supposed to make certain rules for industries to have risk protection bonds, and that never happened. And so in 2008, the Sierra Club and others filed suit in California to force the EPA to follow through with that rulemaking. In 2009, they decided to move forward, EPA decided to move forward, and they identified hard rock mining as the first industry. I'll talk more about why on the next slide, but they finally got a draft rule on January 11th, 2017. That's when it was published in the Federal Register. And on December 1st, just last Friday, the EPA made a decision that no rule was needed. And a lot happened in between there, so I will try to bring you up to date on that. The reason I chose hard rock mining is because of the 1,635 sites that were proposed, listed, or deleted under CERCLA. 7% of them, 90, were mining and smelting sites. They claimed, this is EPA's language here, the metal mining industry disposes of large amounts of waste to the environment, and they had independent reports identifying mining as appropriate to evaluate for this type of regulation, and commodity prices, they felt, make the mining industry more susceptible to bankruptcy. Just so you know that after I think late last year, they identified the next 3 industries that would begin this rulemaking. One was oil and gas, one was chemicals, and one is power generations. So they would be moving on to other industries. They just chose mining first. They thought it was the biggest problem. The Federal Register noticed that it would include mining facilities which extract, beneficiate, or process metals, for example, copper, gold, iron, lead, magnesium, molybdenum, silver, uranium, and zinc, and non-metallic, non-fuel minerals such as asbestos, gypsum, phosphate, rock, and sulfur. Later, in a later publication, they exempted some things which for Utah were, the ones important for Utah were sand and gravel, crushed stone, dimension stone, gilsonite, lime, gypsum, salt, and sodium compounds. The state programs, throughout this process, we were trying to get the EPA to understand what the state does. And the difference between what the state rules, the particularly the state of Utah, versus what EPA was trying to do is the state program requires financial surety based on a mine plan to ensure compliance with reclamation standards meant to prevent releases, minimize disturbance, and reclaim affected land afterward. The EPA surety would include bond for unplanned releases of hazardous substances, which they assumed would happen based on a non-site specific formula. And it was this nebulous, we think there's a risk based on these factors, you need to put up these $4 billion or so, because there could be an unplanned release of hazardous substances. The biggest concern for the states that have mining regulation and also groundwater regulation in place is that our programs could be preempted under CERCLA. It wouldn't happen by the EPA, but any entity that would be under this CERCLA 108B bond could come in and say we're being double bonded and we don't want to be also bonded by the state, and our bonding is our biggest tool, and so it was very problematic to us. The states were very concerned about that. As far back as 2011, we were asking EPA to take a gap approach where they could look at states. I know they were concerned about states that have no regulation, but we were asking them to look at states, and if we have regulations up to a certain standard, and it may have even required Utah to put in some new statutes or adjust some things, but we were willing to take that route. But we asked to do it that way. Make a standard, if a state can come up to that, then they keep their program. CERCLA 108B doesn't apply. That was never followed. That gap approach was, like I say, we tried from the beginning and nothing happened. A lot of the coordination of this was done through IMCC and Greg Conrad and Beth Botsis, and they started back when rulemaking began in 2009. We attempted to be as involved as possible. We had some back and forth through emails. There were a few webinars where the EPA gave us PowerPoint presentations, didn't really answer questions, and no one at EPA really wanted to listen to the states or talk to us. Greg was able to get a meeting together in February of this year, right after the rule was published. The EPA finally sat down with us. We had people from Region 8 and with people from headquarters who had worked on this rule, and we had some beachhead members of the new administration there as well. The main states that were involved were Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Montana, Nevada, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. And during the meeting, we really pushed for that gap approach and a way for people to be, or for a way to make the formula that they were using more site-specific and more accurate, so that mines were not being over-bonded for unplanned releases. They were ignoring the fact that we already have a mine plan to prevent those unplanned releases. That was not taken to heart by EPA at all. So at that meeting, we decided that the new approach was, we don't need a rule. And so the states banded together. We worked with DEQ, Alan Matheson and John Baza jointly prepared a letter for Governor Herbert to sign, expressing our concerns. Utah did not submit detailed comments, but we did submit a comment letter supporting the IMCC and other states' position of the no rule option. Just real quickly, some of the other concerns we had with the rule: the formula didn't allow any site specificity and included non-standard requirements with no basis or explanation. For example, they were using a 24-hour, 200-year storm event for design. And I'm an engineer, and I don't know of a lot of things that are, some things may be built to that level, but that's not something that's used in any other EPA rules or any other mining rules, and they could not answer where that came from. The formula they had was convoluted and hard to follow, different people using the exact same mine information would come up with different numbers. No credit was given for having a mine plan that prevents these types of things or having already reclaimed things. They assumed releases would happen based on what mine features you had and how big they were, not actual risk. Nothing was site-specific anyway. And it was based on old cleanup. So they worked backwards from how much did it cost us to clean up these 12 mines? Let's work backwards and say that's the formula. The numbers were huge, billions of dollars per mine. There was no bond release mechanism, little explanation of how the money would ever be used, how that even went into place. And the biggest thing that really they never got past was that they were assuming that mining is still taking place in the same manner as it was 50 to 100 years ago. They were not recognizing that we have rules. People are doing things differently. We care about the environment, and we're here as states protecting it. So the latest is on November 16th, the OIRA, Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, wanted to have one more phone call to listen to the state's point of view. 6 states, including Utah, participated in that. We gave another rundown of why we thought there should be no rule. Some questions were asked, and then that must have been what they needed to make their decision, because on last Friday they announced that there would be no need for federal requirements. Now, I'm not an attorney, but I'm sure this is being sued or will be sued, so this is probably not the end of it. But I guess the good news is we're not, as states, gearing up for a lawsuit because the action that we asked for was taken. And so we may be involved in the future legally or in some other way with this, but for now it's in another realm. And I feel like I was talking to Paul yesterday, and we both feel like this was a lot of work, but we feel like we're better regulators for having gone through this and reading some of the concerns people had. And, you know, we're here arguing that we're preventing that. And so we're sharpening our eyes and making sure that we are doing and living up to what we have claimed when we've made our comments as the state of Utah. Thank you. Any questions?
Board members, any questions? Mr. Hanson.
Dana, do you know, is there any effort legislatively to correct this problem?
I'm not aware of any, and I have not heard of any all throughout the time that we've been working on this. No one's mentioned that.
So this could come back around.
Yeah, like I said, so the decision that was made last Friday, the reason they made it that day is because they had to make a decision by that date based on a lawsuit. So I'm sure more legal appeals kicked in after that.
Well, I, for one, appreciate the work you and Paul and the staff did on this on behalf of the mining industry in Utah. This, I think, at this point, a victory for responsible miners.
I agree. Thank you. And I agree it's a victory for states that have already gone to the effort to have these programs in place where we're preventing the types of problems that happened in the past. And we're not allowing the types of things that became CERCLA sites in the past. So I do realize that the concern out there is that, yeah, we had those states I had listed. We all were there fighting for our programs and claiming and saying and, you know, definitely saying we're doing the right thing, but they're maybe not all states are doing the right thing. This probably will be a long road more, but like I say, I think we've learned from it, and we'll see what happens next. We'll keep fighting for our program for sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Moon.
So are there any specific changes that you made based on strong feedback?
No, not really. I think just being more aware of what some of the concerns are, and not that we weren't doing it before, but just as we're doing things, being more aware of, oh, this is one of the concerns they had, and yes, we are preventing this.
Other comments? Or? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
we
you.
Appreciate that update.
Thank you, Dana. Moving into the next item on our agenda, which is other, this is where I wanted to share with you some of the thoughts that I've had recently about what we've been doing with live streaming our board meetings and frankly other events that we're conducting in the division. I know many years ago, Julianne and I talked, and we wanted to do something that would increase the ability for the board to function electronically. I'm not sure that we had a clear vision of where we were going with it, but we knew that that was the way the world was going. Everything is electronic. People want more information through electronic means. And so, I think we started putting documents out for electronic retrieval, make it easier to use for the public and for board members. And the next step on that was actually having these meetings electronically. And I think the board was helpful in that you adopted some policies and rules regarding how to conduct electronic meetings using remote witnesses and things like that. So slowly we've evolved into this kind of electronic media age, and now each of the board hearings, as you know, are being live streamed out on the Department of Natural Resources YouTube channel. I give a lot of credit to Paul Gedge, who's sitting back there with his earphones on, being the symphony conductor for this whole event. And he has been extremely helpful as a DTS employee, and then in the last few months, he has actually converted to a full-time Department of Natural Resources employee. So, he has been a key element in helping us with all this, how we're going to do it, what equipment to buy, how we're going to send this out for public consumption. So, this has great bearing on the discussions that the legislature has about public notices and recording of public meetings. We're real pleased with the product, but we know that we're not finished. It's going to continue to evolve. But I did want to tell you that I've heard some comments, especially through my contacts at the Interstate Oil and Gas Commission, that we're getting high praise for what we're doing here, and the fact that people can attend remotely and watch the board hearings and see the exhibits as they come up, and then they can go back through the archives and actually, did they really say that, or what was really said? And it's been very helpful. I know that our building here is not going to expand too much in the next few years, but we're able now to stream this out so that at any time we have dozens of people watching on the internet as we're doing these things, so they don't actually have to drive to Salt Lake or to some other location to participate and observe these hearings. We've used these hearings for informal conferences that we're doing with the public. We use them for the hearing examiner process that we do in the oil and gas program. It's been a real value and benefit to us. So I want to thank those involved in helping us get to that point. As you know, I introduced Tom Thompson here when we hired him in August. He's actually the division's representative who's somewhat apprenticing with Paul, and he'll soon be conducting some of this electronic package on his own at one of our future informal meetings. So we're excited to have this process, and we're excited about thinking about where it can go from here. So I just wanted to update you on that and say great acknowledgement to appreciation to all those who have contributed to this effort.
Thank you. Board members, any comments? Just one then, a couple for me. As I recall, the first time we had an electronic meeting, most of the equipment in here was Paul's personal private property. And then it has morphed. And I was wondering how much of this is still Paul's private property, and whether we're able to get the funding to do this on a more systematic basis.
I'm not sure that he can you
You'll need to speak in the microphone.
Yeah. For you in YouTube land, this is Paul Gedge.
I have officially made it onto the YouTube channel now. This is a little humbling. Chairman, there is a notable amount of equipment now in use that has been funded by a consortium within the department. There is still some evaluation gear that we are utilizing, but we have come a long ways and we're working towards being fully self-sufficient.
Well, that's wonderful. What hurdles do you still have that the board or others could assist you on, and at least like a supporting letter or anything that we could do to move this forward and be more involved at all?
Right now, in one of our sister boards, the Division of Wildlife Resources, their meeting as of last Thursday had 124 people attending in real time for a matter that represented interests across the state. That exceeded the number of people in the room. There was a healthy crowd in the room. The reason I bring this history up, the first exploration of some of this technology was back in December of 2014. We're taking a slow but deliberate pace to help ensure that we do it right the first time. We don't have any remorse as we engage in a certain technology or the hardware that makes it happen. Over the course of the next 6 months, we'll probably be at that next plateau, and I would just encourage continued support and patience as we figure out what good looks like and what we can do technically to encourage participation in a product that serves, an instrument that serves everyone involved.
My question, next question is you, Director Baza, and that is on the public surveys that have been taken. You may want to address the board on that, but is there many comments or suggestions on any of that for?
I haven't seen any directly. We're actually digesting those comments, and we'll be, trying to respond or react to some of them in the next few weeks. But I would let you know that I think Holly sent an email to the board recently giving you the results of the most recent survey. And even though that doesn't have the specific comments submitted by people, we go through a pretty hearty effort to analyze those and try to decide, well, what are people telling us? We want to be sure that we're listening to the folks who are actually submitting comments. So we're going through that process right now.
It's a few organizations that can be in the 80 to 85% of approval rating. That's quite extraordinary. And I think it speaks volumes for the customer sensitivity that the director and the division has, and we appreciate that as a board.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment on that, or on your, we have iPads for everyone, and we went through a long study on that. Has that worked well? Any comments from the board members on that? Looks like thumbs up behind the desk here. So, okay, Paul, thank you very much. And
Thanks so much,
Julianne,
Paul.
thank you for your involvement in that.
Last item that I have to address with you is the division's calendar. December always seems to be a busy month for various reasons, and hopefully all of you will plan to stay around tonight after the hearing for the board's holiday open house. We've scheduled that from 5 to 7, or as soon as possible that we can start after the board finishes conducting its formal business. We're excited about having that. We always enjoy it. It's a good time to meet and greet old friends and people who have been supporters of the division and the board over the years, and people who conduct business in front of the board. So yeah, we're ready and able and excited about doing that this evening. So I know Julianne has arranged for some nice refreshments for us, so we're looking forward to that. On down, oh, sorry.
Just one comment. I thought the event tonight was from 4 to 6. That's what the flyer said. So it's been
Yeah,
changed.
and we've only looked at it from the standpoint of what the board's agenda is, and we may have gone past the 4 o'clock hour, so we've actually re-noticed it for 5 to 7. But if we're done by 4, we can start mingling at 4. So
we'll be efficient.
Okay. Other dates coming up on the calendar. On the 14th, the Department of Natural Resources is having its employee awards meeting. It covers this entire room, and all of the building employees will come and be a part of that. Mr. Styler conducts that meeting. So it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. There'll be some entertainment, and then the announcement of the departmental awards that are issued every year. So if you're able to come to that, please feel welcome to come. Later that afternoon, you might be interested that Lynn Kunzler, one of our longtime employees in the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, is retiring after 36 years. So there will be a retirement event for Lynn. I believe that's starting around 1 o'clock, 1:30, somewhere in there. So if you want to make 2 trips to the department, or if you happen to be around for one or either of those activities, please come on the 14th of December. And then on the 20th of December, which is a Thursday, I believe, that's when the division is holding its Wednesday. The division is holding its service awards ceremony, and will recognize people for their years of service in state government, plus some other awards and recognitions that we have. That is a luncheon, so we'll start about 11:30. You're welcome to come to lunch and stay as long as you like. It involves some team building activities for the staff and the food, and then the announcement of the awards. So that's on the 20th of December. Lastly, I'll mention that we're having another one of our oil and gas collaborative meetings in Duchesne on January the 11th, and that will start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're going to focus the theme of that meeting this time on produced water management, and we've arranged for several speakers to talk about how produced water is managed and how it could be managed for better benefit to the industry and the public. So that'll be on the 11th of January at 9 a.m. And that's in the Duchesne Events Center. And I think, Mr. Chairman, that is all I have for briefing, and I'm happy to answer any questions that board members have, or turn the time back over to you.
Board members, any comments or questions or suggestions? Just one for the board. How did your budget presentation go with the legislature? And
well, for as much time as we had, I thought it went well. I think we have allies and friends in the legislature, and they understand a little bit about what we do, and I think they're very supportive of keeping the division funded to do the business that we do. So the opportunity we had with them, it was arranged through individuals on the subcommittee. Our representative was Representative Duckworth out of Magna. We briefed her pretty extensively before going into the meeting, and then she asked us to provide the briefing to the subcommittee, and it only took about 10 minutes of time. The committee asked a few questions, but I think it was a positive meeting from my point of view.
anything else from the board? Okay. Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you.
This is now the time and place for public comments. Anyone that would like to address the board on an issue of concern within our jurisdiction, we would invite you to come forward now, identify yourself, and speak into the mic. Seeing none, then the last item would be to make sure everyone here is invited to our open house this afternoon, and we sincerely, and I say that, sincerely hope that you will take the time out of your busy schedules to join us for that event. And then we will be, we're going to be adjourned until 9 a.m., and then we'll start our regular board hearing. Thank you. Beg your pardon, I've done that. That's the second time. At 10 o'clock, we will be back for our regular board hearing.
So we